Well, I mean, I've noticed like you've really paid close attention to this situation. I've seen you had the last dive bar shirts. I just want to let people know using my affiliate link down below. Use a promo code RickyBlog too to get 10% off at lastdivebar.com. But and you were at Fans Fest. You were at Jack London Square when they had 15 10 20 15 20,000 people there. What about this A's fan story has attracted you, or like what do you think about it, and why have you connected with the A's fan base so strongly throughout this whole debacle, really?
Yeah, and I knew the A's just as much as I knew any other team as a kid because I'm from New Jersey. The one connection I can start with early on is this happened later in life, but I was a big New Jersey Nets fan. I was fans of all the New Jersey, New York teams, as you'd imagine, or some, right? You like some, you hate some of the others because we have multiples. But for example, when the New Jersey Nets moved to Brooklyn, I felt it. I didn't know that I would feel it as much as I did. And the situation going on in Oakland is way different. They weren't like quiet quitting or constantly picking on fans and doing every single thing wrong from an ownership perspective. They just moved. But I did feel like I lost the connection to the team. It hurt a lot of my fandom in general with the sport. I've actually since kind of picked up the Knicks because I lived in New York City for a long time in Manhattan. So anyway, moving it over to the A's, I fell in love with the vibe of A's fans once I started working for the league, and I would be up late at night, often hosting Quick Pitch on MLB Network. And the last game of the night, A's, and it's a walk off half the time. The drums are roaring, all of the crowd shots are incredible. Like you felt that, and there were even fans that I worked with because I worked with hundreds of people that were A's fans, and they were often my favorite people. And it wasn't just because they were A's fans; it was how they viewed the game, how open and nice they were, and how genuine they were. So I fell in love that way. And then finally, I worked for an independent company, or I helped to run one, right? And I'm on a show where we point out what's going on in baseball, good or bad, and we can bring out what the hell's going on in Oakland. So that was the last layer here of connecting with fans. And I try and make it more global for the game because obviously we have more than A's fans that are watching and listening to the show. I said this when I was at Fans Fest on the stage. Mm-hmm. What's going on in Oakland is not just an Oakland problem. It is a baseball problem. We cannot let people operate this way. This is not what sports were built for. And from a business perspective, which some people love to focus on, it is terrible for business. Yeah. The way that everything has been running. And, I know you guys have talked about it a ton, but you're going to lose fans in one of the biggest markets in the country, and they will move on to other teams, other sports, etc. Right? Like the Ballers and the Warriors, whatever.
Yeah,
right?
The Oakland Roots. Yeah.
The Roots, exactly. Yeah. You are going to lose so many dedicated fans to our sport. And I get that teams need to move sometimes, but the way that this has been done has been disgusting. And we know that the Oakland A's should be in Oakland forever. So that's why my passion has lit up, and it keeps lighting up when I make a trip like that to Jack London Square for Fans Fest. And it's one of the career highlights for me, meeting everyone. Everything you see and read about is even more true when you have face-to-face conversations with the fans about what's going on. So the connection is strong for me, as strong as I can be. And I appreciate the A's fans for letting me help to be a voice for them and just welcoming me into their community. I think that all baseball fans should be that way. If we're calling something out, hopefully you support us calling that out if you feel the same way, and don't say, well, this is just our problem, you shouldn't comment about it. It should be like, no, we should all talk through this together because we're all sports fans at the end of the day.
I think what's really funny is that you're sort of describing that time where you came to Fan Fest and you actually met people in person, you got to hear the stories from people. I think what's interesting is I experienced this sort of the absolute the reverse of that, where for a long time there was just nobody's coming to the Coliseum, there's something just wrong with everything, blah blah blah. And then starting about 13 or 14 months ago when they committed to the wild wild west, whatever, it changed, partly because of all the organizing that we've done, but also just because of how much they've just continued to debase themselves in all manners of dress. And just this week, randomly, it didn't break any news, but there was a column in the New Yorker, which is the last place where I'd expect a will the A's actually move to Las Vegas or not? You know, it's like it's reached everywhere where it's become such a farce. And in that way, I think it has been incredibly validating for A's fans to hear, you know, not that we like, you know, not that people, you know, you need to be told that your fandom matters or that your community matters, but it was, I think it's incredibly validating to hear people like you and, you know, people from like who are nationally broadcasted to say like, hey, we get it, and these guys like don't deserve this, and it's wrong. So, you know, it's been when we all first when this all sort of first happened, you know, when they said we're gone, it was just like, what do we do? You know, Alex and I like did like an emergency pod, we recorded it. And then after that, I was like, you know what, it's the only time I've ever done like a Twitter space. I was like, let's just do a Twitter space. And just people were just like crying, basically. Yeah. You know, it was just like it was like 4 or 5 hours of just people just like crying to each other. But it, you know, it also like nobody was imagining, well, we got to fight for the next 14 months. It was like, it's over. But you know, you know, the silver lining of such a dark, miserable storm cloud, I think, has been, you know, being able to come together as a community and sort of celebrate that, and also, you know, fight as hard as we can and cause as much problems for them as possible. And you know, in that sense, it's been its own sort of reward. Uh, yeah, and just kind of fun and silliness too. Because, you know, also like the thing that always kills me, you know, my wife told me this once, you know, maybe like 6 months ago or something, when I was just, you know, storming around the house or stomping around the house. And she's like, you know, baseball is supposed to be fun.
Yeah.
I was like, oh fuck.
Not
Yeah.
a battle, right? It's just a game.
Yeah. So, you know, I think it's its own reward, and it's been its own fun almost off the field as a baseball fan now. Just being a, I had a tremendous amount of time, a fun time just watching. I was texting back and forth with Brian, Sandlot Brian, when he was sending you guys $10 donations when you had Brody on YouTube, being like, come to Fans Fest, come to Fans Fest, knowing that you wouldn't know what that is, but Brody would. And it just, you know, it's just like all these kind of shenanigans, like watching people with the 68s and Last Dive Bar do their shenanigans, and that's I don't know. I don't have a question. It just
No, that's fair.
sparked